Children can teach us so much. I want to share an example of a typical conversation between my nephew. This is going to hit close to home for a lot of us. Okay, Dallas. All right, Sam, put the phone away.
But why?
It's because you have to go to bed.
But why?
Because it's a school night.
But why?
Because you have to get an education.
But why?
If you get a good education, you can get a good job.
But why?
A cute kid, right? Now, the parents in the room might not think that's so cute. That routine will get old very quickly. That's my nephew Dallas making his screen debut. I chose to lead with that video to highlight the inquisitive nature of children and how sometimes as adults and leaders, we move away from that tendency to ask questions. But by reverting to our toddler selves, we can actually transform communities. Asking why is powerful. Understanding the driving forces behind violence allow us to better create strategies to prevent it. When a police officer asks a person caught with a gun, why do you feel the need to carry a weapon? Or asking a teen with a gang affiliation, why did you join a gang? Those answers provide solutions to problems. And then by attacking the reasons that create the environments for violence involvement, we in turn create long-term crime prevention strategies. So thank you, Dallas, for that inspiration. I've been a Chicago police officer since 2002, spending my entire career on the south and west side communities of Garfield Park, Englewood, and now Austin. You must understand that Austin is very special to me. I grew up on the very streets that I now patrol, so this job is personal. I see my mom, my son, myself, and every person I encounter. And for that reason, I'm driven to uncover the causal factors of violence so that the repeated cycles of murder, incarceration, and substance abuse do not continue to consume my neighborhood. My current role is the community policing sergeant for the 15th district in the Austin community. One of the primary goals of this office is to strengthen the relationships between police and community. I often see myself as an advocate in that role. And because of the non-traditional paths that we take, people ask me all the time whether or not I worked for a nonprofit in my previous job. But I really consider that a compliment, because being able to connect with the residents and the stakeholders that we serve ensures that the directions we go are always in line with the needs of the community. This approach to crime prevention aligns strongly with theories of social justice. Now, listen, buckle in, okay? Because what I'm about to say is going to attack the most prevalent narratives about police in the Black community. In the 15th District Community Policing Strategy, we have adopted a model in which social justice is our crime prevention strategy. The 4 core principles of social justice are equity, access, participation, and rights. And without fail, the answers to the why questions revert back to one of those core principles. For example, an encounter between the district commander and a group of young men standing on a corner that was the site of several shootings and the location of numerous narcotic selling calls. That encounter produced one of our most successful community policing campaigns. The question was asked, why are you all out here? The response, if I had a job, I wouldn't have to be out here. No one will hire me with a criminal background. Those sound like issues of equity and access. So we devised a strategy to create outdoor job fairs on the corners that produce the highest incidence of violence. This was an amazing effort by the district's business liaison officer, Officer Edgar Brown, enlisted the support of community organizations and companies that had programming designed for people with criminal histories. And the first Take It to the Streets job fair produced this. In this photo, in the foreground, what you see are laptops connected to Wi-Fi on a table with individuals crowded around waiting for their turn to complete a job application. And in the background, there's a line form of people waiting for a chance to talk to an employer or job training specialist. And this is happening on a street corner where days before someone had been murdered. No outside advertising was done because this event was designed specifically for the people on that block. It was their chance to get one-on-one counseling and guidance through a job application process. This is one of my favorite photos because when I look at it, it says so much. There I see excitement, I see hope, I see people jumping on opportunities of which they may have never had. But this is sad. You know why? It's sad because it speaks directly to the history of neglect that is happening on the West Side. How is it, 2019, we have so many people being forgotten and overlooked? Now, as a member of the community, as a police officer, and as a black man, I am well aware of the stereotypes that exist about the African American community. This photo here is evidence. Unemployment is not due to laziness, nor is it the result of a lack of a desire to work. We brought opportunities to a place that had been abandoned, and look what happened. This inspires me because you know what I really see here? It's hunger. It's hunger for a chance. It is a willingness to seize an opportunity and a complete destruction of the misinformed beliefs about what the West Side represents. That summer, on those corners, we helped nearly 100 individuals enter the workforce or start a job training program. This is an example of one of the many social justice-based initiatives that we have successfully implemented in the 15th District. And the strategies of bringing opportunity to the streets of Chicago's most violent communities have been adopted by numerous police districts all over the city. Remember, I said what you would hear would attack narratives, specifically narratives on the roles of police in the black community. Police and community relationships is a polarizing topic in America. In the hot issues involving use of force and police-involved shootings, race plays a major role in a person's perception. What I see is that people from white communities most often side with the police, whereas people in black communities most often disagree with the actions of the police officer. This is an opinion backed up by a recent survey conducted by Pew Research Center, which found that 87% of African Americans believe that the criminal justice system treats them unfairly. In contrast, only 32% of whites believe that the way African Americans are treated by the criminal justice system is actually a problem in America. This tendency for distrust is an enormous barrier in building relationships in many of our communities. And to overcome it, police will have to tackle this obstacle head on. Social justice as a crime prevention strategy does just that. Our officers on the West Side are being recognized for youth development, employment assistance, community organizing, family support, and resource allocation. Seeing a police officer as a community leader in these fields on the West Side was unheard of. But we worked to change that. And to make it happen, we had to ask ourselves in the police department that same simple question: why? So I've asked, why would a person commit a crime? Why do people participate in violent acts? But we must also ask, why should the police take on this task? Building community, creating environments for equity and access, that falls beyond the scope of enforcing laws. But I'm comfortable putting that burden on my back and asking other officers to do the same because of what the police represent in an under-resourced community. In many cases, the police station is one of the few stable institutions that a person can recognize in their neighborhood. I've lived on the West Side my entire life. I'm a current resident of North Lawndale. Walking out of my front door, cigarettes, liquor, drugs, and even guns are more readily accessible than fresh produce in a bank. But in these communities, there is one group of people that will always answer the call, that in a time of crisis will cast aside fear and danger to go face to face with any plight. And that's the police officer. It is my belief that we are bound by honor to correct wrongs and take those extra steps to improve the quality of life of every person in Chicago, regardless of their zip code. Because if not us, then who? Committing to a social justice as crime prevention strategy requires police leadership to create a climate in which this viewpoint is embraced. It begins with a culture shift that is accomplished by redefining what it means to serve the community. Actions that create a pathway towards repairing the fractures in our communities should be rewarded as well. Committing to a social justice as crime prevention strategy requires police leadership to create a climate in which this viewpoint is embraced. It begins with the culture shift that is accomplished by redefining what it means to serve the community. Our leaders must encourage the type of activities that also serve the social needs of a community. Arrest and other enforcement-based activity have clearly defined incentives attached to them, whether it's financial compensation earned from overtime at court or consideration for a special assignment and promotion. Actions that create a pathway towards repairing fractures in our communities should be rewarded as well. An officer who spends 6 hours a week volunteering to coach with our police and youth sports conference should be highlighted in the same way as an officer that catches a robbery suspect. An officer who each week participates in night prayer walks with our faith-based community should be highlighted the same way as an officer that seizes guns and drugs during a search warrant. These actions are all equally important towards violence reduction. And when we alter the climate and the culture, we then define what it truly means to serve the community. This is Devontae Jackson, known to everyone as Lefty. Nicknamed so because of his left-handedness. That was the best we could come up with. Now, I've known Lefty since he was a 6-year-old T-baller, and he played on 3 of the teams I coached during my 10 years at Garfield Park Little League. This photo here is from 2016. It was the last year Devontae played on one of the teams I coached. At that time, I was the 11 and 12-year-old coach. I would really love to show you all photos of a smiling 15-year-old Devontae from today. But I cannot. Devontae was shot and killed on a West Side street just 4 weeks ago. These are the stakes. It is life and death. I've talked to you this whole time about the importance of asking why. But what is more crucial is the who. Because when I fail, when our leaders fail, when this city fails, who suffers? It's our kids. We can never forget who we are fighting for and who is counting on us. Devontae, why?